Good afternoon, and welcome to this informational webinar about the NSF CSGrad4US Fellowship and Mentoring Program. My name is Eric Russell. I'm the Director of Educational Initiatives at the Computing Research Association and also the PI of the award that manages the NSF CSGrad4US Fellowship. I'm joined today by my fellow presenters, Dr. Jeff Forbes. He's a Program Director at the National Science Foundation. And Lori Pollock, who is a program leader and co-PI on the award, and she's affiliated with the University of Delaware. Susanna Hambrush is a program leader and co-PI affiliated with Purdue University. And we're also joined by Kelly Shaw, who will not be presenting, but she will be helping out with the questions in the Q&A session a little later on. And Kelly is also a program leader and co-PI affiliated with Williams College. And so for today's agenda, next slide, please. Yes, so okay, so for today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about NSF's perspective on the CS Grad4US Fellowship, and Jeff will be presenting on that. And then we'll talk about getting into or getting a PhD, some of the motivations, the process, and opportunities that are available. And Lori Pollock will cover that. And then we'll discuss more about the fellowship and the mentoring program, which is an important component of the program. And so we'll talk about the program and the timeline, the support that is made available, the eligibility requirements for the fellowship, and also the application. And then we'll finish it off with some Q&A towards the end. And with that, next slide. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Eric. So I'm Jeff Forbes. I work at the U.S. National Science Foundation. If you don't know, that's the independent federal agency that supports science and engineering in the U.S. And I'm coming from NSF's Directorate for Computer and Information Science and Engineering. And we're very happy and proud of the NSF Computer Information Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship Program. So go to the next slide. So the goal of the program is to try to increase the number of students from all backgrounds who pursue research and innovation careers in SCIES. And when we say SCIES, what we mean by that is computer science, computer engineering, or information science. Part of the reason for this is that those fields are experiencing booming undergraduate enrollment, but a relatively small fraction of those individuals consider pursuing doctoral degrees. So we need to increase the number of them. And this is a program that NSF has that's a complement to our graduate research fellowship program. But CS Grad4US, the goal is to provide opportunity for people who've earned a bachelor's degree, who may be working in industry, to come back to academia and to go get a doctoral degree. We've been running this program since 2021 and had 4 application cycles each year. And cohort 4 is currently applying to graduate school. But we're very proud of the fellowships that we had so far. We have fellows enrolled in programs across the nation. I can't remember how many states and territories, but lots of them. And I think it's important to recognize that part of the goal of the program is to try to address students or potential students wherever they might be and encourage them to pursue a research-based doctoral degree. Next. So where are the current CS Grad4US fellows enrolled? So they're at a lot of different places. They earned their bachelor's degrees in a lot of different places, and they're also enrolled in a lot of different schools. And I think hopefully this will appeal to you, understanding that there are opportunities to pursue a PhD in computer science in lots of different places. So I do hope that you'll consider applying for the CS Grad for US Fellowship if it matches your goals and eligibility. So back to you, Lori.
Okay, so I'm Lori Pollock from University of Delaware, one of the program leaders of CSGrad4US, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why you might be thinking about getting a PhD and what opportunities it can provide you, and just real quickly, what's involved in an application for graduate school. Next slide. So these are probably the most common reasons people think about doing a PhD. There are, you don't have to have, you don't have to be thinking about all of these, but they're kind of the most common reasons people might think about it. So I want to work and have an actual greater impact on society, in particular through research, through creating new knowledge about some topic that you're passionate about. So being able to make a bigger impact on all of society through creating new innovations. Another one is people already work with somebody with a PhD and they believe that they would also like to have a PhD to be able to collaborate with this person. I think a big reason people think about a PhD is they're actually really interested in research. They think that the whole concept of research is a very exciting endeavor. And so they want to become a researcher and become a really well-trained researcher, which is exactly what a PhD does for you, is it takes you through this training process. And a lot of people think about a PhD mostly because they want to pursue an academic career as a faculty, and you primarily have to, at this stage, have a PhD in order to be a faculty at a university. Next slide. So before you actually think about applying to a PhD or graduate school, you do have to think about a couple things. One is you really have to have a sense of what is research, because that is, well, PhD is all about research training. It's an apprenticeship to learn how to be a high quality researcher. So you need to know what is research. You should have some idea of what research areas, general research areas you're interested in. You might have a couple that you don't have to have pinpointed an exact research topic, that a problem that you want to pursue, but you should certainly have an idea of what kind, a general area of research you're interested in and why you're interested in that area. It could be multiple areas that maybe somehow you could combine them. You don't need to have a research experience as an undergraduate. It can certainly help you get into some of the higher ranked schools, but it's not necessary to have that research experience. We definitely had a lot of people in our cohorts, our past cohorts, who did not have research experience, and they've gotten accepted into really good schools. You thinking about whatever research area you're most interested in, it's helpful to have some technical background for that area or that PhD program, whatever that might be. However, it's not, the expectations for how much technical background you have can really vary between programs. So it can really kind of depends on which programs you're applying to as to what kind of technical background they're expecting that you already have. And so you really have to think about and look into those programs and what their admissions requirements say. So don't expect it to be the same for every program or every school. You should definitely be aware that PhD study is a full-time endeavor. It's like taking on a full-time job. You are an apprenticeship to a research advisor, and that advisor is going to expect that you've taken this on as a full-time endeavor. And so you really cannot keep your industry job as a full-time industry job while you're enrolled. Next slide. So this just gives you an idea of there are so many different research areas that can be eligible for this fellowship. They all fall under what we call SISE, the Computer Information Science and Engineering. And we talk a lot about what is an eligible program throughout the mentoring sessions that we have. Next slide. So what does having a PhD actually allow you to do? The number one thing that comes to most people's minds is becoming faculty at a university. And most of us in the stage that you're in typically think of the tenure track faculty at a PhD granting research institution. But there are tenure track faculty at MS institutions and four-year teaching institutions. There are also faculty called teaching track faculty, whose primary responsibility is teaching as opposed to research. And then there's research faculty at institutions where their primary job is research. So there's a variety of different kinds of academic positions that you should be aware of, all requiring a PhD. And then non-academic research. So still being a researcher when you finish your degree, but you're a scientist in a research lab, and those labs could be in a company, they could be in a startup, they could be in a government national lab. They could be very applied research positions. They don't have to be in a software industry. They could be in the banking, financial industry. There are lots of industries that are hiring PhDs in size fields. So they're not like aren't all of the Google, Microsoft, Facebook kind of companies. Lots of different companies are hiring PhDs in size. And then there's also research-driven leadership positions where you want to be an entrepreneur, get involved with a startup, consulting, technical leadership, or get involved in government positions that require PhDs in computer science. It's an interesting fact that about 60% of the PhDs that are awarded in size actually do not pursue an academic career. So only 40% are actually becoming faculty. Next slide. So these are the main components of applying for a PhD. And we have the CSGrad4US program is all about mentoring you through the process of putting this together. So there's personal statements, there's letters of recommendation, your transcripts, and some schools are requiring GRE scores, some are not. Basically, this all comes together as a package that tells your story. And we talk a lot about telling your unique story of where you're coming from, where you want to be, and how you want to get there. And so it's kind of deceptively simple, is that it's all boiling down to what is your story. Next slide. So a question we get a lot about this program is returning from the workforce to pursue a PhD a common path? Next slide. So there are lots of different pathways to a PhD in computer science. The most common pathway to a PhD is actually going directly from your undergraduate into a PhD program. However, that's not the only option. And so CSGrad4US has really been created to provide a unique opportunity for you to enter a PhD program from the workforce, coming back from the workforce. And so it is a unique pathway. So your previous instructors, your funding agencies, software companies, research labs, all believe that many individuals with potential for research went to the research workforce after their bachelor's degree and came back for their PhD. Actually, a lot of time when we were first starting this program, we kept running into a whole lot of people that I didn't realize that were my friends who had done exactly that and just never talked about it. It definitely gives you a very unique perspective when you're in graduate school. Next slide. So this gives you some idea of our last cohort when they actually finished their bachelor's degree. So you can see that we have people from all the way back in 2003 that finished their bachelor's degree and went through CSGrad4US 20 years later. Most of them, though, you can see are within the last 5 to 10 years and coming back after it's been very interesting to hear the reasons of why they're coming back. Most of them are a lot of the motivations that I talked about earlier, but also they're just kind of bored in what they're doing and they want to do something more exciting, and they believe that research, getting involved in research is going to be that path for them. All right. Hand it over to Susanna. You're muted.
I'll take over talking more about the fellowship and what it includes. And I'm Susanna Humbush. I'm in the CS department at Purdue University. So next slide. What's different from pretty much all other fellowships that you may have seen is that the fellowship comes with a mentoring program. It actually comes with support during your first year, and that is really needed when you have been out of school for anywhere for 5 years or more. The mentoring program has two parts to it. One of them is that we have run in the evening mentoring sessions on various topics of the PhD application process. And last year there were about 70 awards made, and typically we get 35, 40 of these future fellows to come to the program when it happens, and we can interactively answer questions. We also record it. Since the time zones are different, clearly not everybody can show up. So the group mentoring talks about the PhD application process and what grad school is about in general. Then every future fellow is assigned a coach that is a researcher, often in the area of interest, sometimes a little bit further away because we aren't able to make all matches like that. And this coach will work in the fall with the individual, they usually have about 3-4 fellows assigned. They have some group meetings with them, the 3 and 4, and then they work individually on the material they have to prepare, on the programs that match their interests, on the research that they are interested in, and how to express this in their statements. It's pretty intense, but really this is needed to produce a strong application. Once they apply, this is a 3-year fellowship that can be used over a period of 5 years. And a requirement is that whoever has the fellowship is a full-time student in a SCIES PhD program. Now, PhD doesn't take 3 years. I think 5 years is more the reality. And if you look at PhD programs all across the US, the institutional support is almost always provided beyond those 3 years. So the support comes in form of a research assistantship from the advisor. It comes in form of another fellowship or being a TA and working on courses. So next slide. So the pieces of that application process and the mentoring program, Lori had a slide with these 4 components of the application material. This is much easier than it looks because, we start with identifying research areas. If you haven't been in school for 5 years, who are your letter writers? It should be people that have a PhD. It should be people that know your research potential. That is sometimes takes some while to sort of research your past and realize where are these people that can write a letter for me? Where are the schools that really match my background and my interest? The application material, these statements of purpose and personal statements are difficult to write, even though they may only be a page long. along. So that's what a coach will help. And once you apply and you get acceptances, there are fellows who say, I wish I'd only gotten one, then the choice was easy. And if you have 5 of them, how do you decide where you want to go? So the individual coaching that complements what we talk about and really gives one-on-one advice is very important. I think we also have that the fellows of one cohort talk to each other, either with their coach or in office hours. That gives them a community. And then there is also the previous fellows that are available through chats or through other meetings. And there's a form of peer mentoring that has emerged. During the first year in grad school, there are some fellows that still the coach or the team from CSGrad4US helps. Many of them are then absorbed by their PhD program in the institutions and actually very quickly know what they're supposed to do. This program is funded by the National Science Foundation, and so there is an evaluation that happens throughout the PhD. Clearly, we do want to see how this works long term, and so there are some surveys that are handed out and that we expect fellows to do. Next slide. We asked the evaluator, so that is somebody independent from our group, to send us some quotes on what fellows say about the mentoring and how it helped them. So I'm not going to read the slides, but I think I want to pick up some themes. Sometimes if you come back from the workforce and you've forgotten what it's like to be in school, you feel like you've forgotten some of the background that is needed. There is a level of insecurity, and being in this mentoring program and having a coach that works with you is something that really builds your confidence. And sometimes in the beginning there is this feeling, oh, I never see how I can get this done and get accepted. And in the end, they have a package and they know where to apply and they get accepted. So the relationships fellows build with their mentors, they sometimes last, and they're very they really go beyond that semester of doing the applications. When a mentor does group mentoring, so then it's a group of usually 3 or 4 mentees that sit with an individual or who's their coach, and so there is a lot of help that's given from one mentee to the other, and some are more daring, asking the questions that actually everybody has. And in addition, we have panels that happen throughout the mentoring program where they meet PhD students, they meet other junior faculty, and so there is a range of information that is passed on and questions are answered, and that many find very helpful. And I think feeling that you're not alone, if you just do this all by yourself, it's a very lonely process. And so being part of this mentoring group and having a cohort and everybody's going through the same thing helps them and gives them confidence. So that's why this is really important, especially for somebody who no longer has the cohort from their undergrad education. Next slide. The timelines that, just we are in the late fall. We are right now with the previous cohort. Most of them have submitted applications. Some deadlines are not until December 15 or early January. So there are still some that are in the process of submitting. So you enter with an undergrad degree in CS or in a related area or size competency, which I think there's a later slide on that. Sort of you sort of you have a basis to be admitted to some of the programs, maybe not all, but it depends on your research interests. You have the industry experience, you have the interest in research, and you want to get a PhD. That's what you have when you apply to these programs, and the application is actually not terribly long and terribly difficult. Anybody who thought about this will be able to produce that. We have there's a panel that reviews the applications, and if you are selected as a fellow, the next phase starts, and your fall will be quite busy because you are going to start working on update your resume so it fits what academia expects. You start drafting a statement of purpose, which is very much what is the research I want to do. And many schools ask for a personal statement, which describes, what is my past, who am I? Identifying letter writers, contacting letter writers, start looking at schools and assessing, do they match my interests? Am I qualified, and do I have the background to enter this program? And if needed, study and take the GREs. In the late fall, then you actually finish all this. You ask the letter writers. Any letter writer will want to see your resume, will want to see your statement of purpose, will want to see your transcript. You finalize all the application material. You sometimes get feedback from a letter writer saying you really should be saying this. You really should be excluding some things you say. So you polish it all and you submit your application. That's where cohort 4 is now. And in the spring, in March, sometimes in February, you hear back from the schools. You hear good news. You hear probably also some not so good news. There are very few applicants that apply to 10 schools and get accepted in 10. If you apply to 10 schools and you are accepted at 3, 4, that's probably more realistic. The schools that you're accepted will all invite you to come and visit, which is very valuable to know what is this program like, what are the people like, what are the students like. And then by April 15, you make a decision. So that's sort of the timeline that we follow, and it goes pretty fast. Next slide. We talk about what's a SCIES PhD program. Lori already said that's if your program is offered by computer science, computer information sciences, or computer engineering, or schools and colleges of computing, which may have other departments in them, those will count as SCIES programs. They are selected into disciplinary programs, but you have to be very careful. It has to be one where the student typically applies to a SCIES department as their home department. So this is generally always discussions. We have fellows that are interested in other areas, and they may or may not be able to use the fellowship. Next slide. Oh, that's Eric. Some more about the fellowship and the application. Eric, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Next slide. So we'll talk a little bit more about the fellowship support. So it does come with 3 years worth of fellowship support during a 5-year fellowship period. And so that includes an annual stipend for each of those 3 years. And currently that's at the rate of $37,000 per year. In addition to that, there's also a cost of education allowance, which is currently $16,000 per year. And so the funds are sent directly to the institution, and the institution pays the fellow the stipend. And so the cost of education allowance is kept by the institution, and that's used to cover like tuition and benefits and so on. And so this amounts to $53,000 a year for 3 years, over $159,000 for each fellow. And then mentoring and coaching program to guide the application and identify the research interests you may have. That's another support of the program. Next slide, please. And I saw, I think in the Q&A already, folks were asking about some of the eligibility requirements. And so here they are. It's an individual, in order to be eligible, must be a U.S. citizen, national, or permanent resident. They must have graduated with a bachelor's degree before January 1st of 2025. They must have demonstrated SCIES core competency. And so there will be another slide, actually, I think it's the next slide, that goes into that a little bit more. They must not have been enrolled in any degree granting program after January 1st of 2025. Never enrolled in and have no pending application or offer of admission for a doctoral degree granting program in a size discipline. And they'll be prepared to attend graduate school enrolling in a research-based doctoral degree program in a size discipline no later than fall of 2027. So size disciplines, once again, are computer science, computer engineering, and information science. Next slide. So size competency. So all successful applicants must demonstrate a size background suitable for their chosen research area PhD program. And so these are a few ways to meet that requirement. A CS, CIS, CE, bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts, and Master's of Science, a minor in CS, CE, or CIS, or equivalent coursework, a CS plus X undergraduate degree, or equivalent work experience as well. And so applicants seeking admissions to programs in iSchools or information schools or eligible interdisciplinary programs may have a background different from those applying to traditional CS programs. And so the website that's listed here has more details on that. Next slide, please. And the fellowship application for the 2025 application cycle is now open, and it will be open until May 31st of 2025. And this is the link to find that application. There's also additional information on the CRA website, which we'll provide, and also on NSF's website about the fellowship as well. Next slide. Yeah, and I think that about does it, but we're happy to answer any additional questions you may have for the team. And thank you for attending. Are there any open questions still? Yeah, if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and enter those into the Q&A now, or feel free, you can also email us as well.
Do you want to answer some questions that they've asked that are very common and relevant? Do you want to actually answer them, or is everybody reading the chat?
Let me scroll through them. I wasn't tracking all the questions. Kelly, you've been feverishly answering all the questions. Thank you in the
Eric,
Q&A.
there are a couple of questions about the actual fellowship application, which I don't necessarily know the answer. I don't remember. Can you provide more than one reference letter? And could you talk a little bit about the components of the fellowship application?
Okay, so there's only room for one letter of recommendation, and that's done that's done because many applicants don't really have a pool of letter writers available at that time on short notice, and that is often what we see. It's either a faculty that you've had in your undergrad curriculum, should be a computer science or a science person who still remembers you because you did something that just was really interesting and relevant and memorable, or it is a supervisor or a previous supervisor. Many of the applicants that we see don't want to tell their supervisor, so they will not use them. But in some cases, actually, we've had more than one case where the individual or the supervisor told the individual, you should really look at this program. You really are smart enough to do a PhD in research, and encourage them to do this. So I think there exists various ways who can write your letter. The application itself has pieces that address your path through through your education and your work and the work you've done, how the work really motivates you to do research. What are you interested in research? What areas? And address how you prepared for research. And then it also asks you, in some sense, what you have done and what your interests are in sort of being helping underrepresented individuals in the size field, which is not very diverse in many ways. And so a lot of the applicants have actually done something either in the workforce or as serving in their community, and they describe that. This is really much where there is no wrong answer, and you describe what you have done and what you plan on doing. That's really, and then you fill out some standard form. It's that is relatively easy, but you just type it in. So I think it's an application you can't just pull out in an evening. You really need to think about it. So that's why I'm happy it's already open, so you can take a look at it and think about what you're going to say. Do you want to add something, Lori or Kelly, to that? When we've all reviewed them, so we've seen many.
I don't think I have anything.
Okay.
I guess there are two more technical questions related to the application. So one is the resume for the application limited to 2 pages? That's one question. And and I know the answer to this one, but is there a target GPA for choosing fellows? And the answer there is no.
No. Once you grow up, your GPA doesn't really matter. So it's even when you apply to grad school, GPAs, there are some guidelines in grad schools, like, you should really have a GPA of above 3.5. But if you're out in the workforce for 10 years, this is really not representative anymore. And by the way, you've done other things, and maybe your courses that you have low grades really aren't relevant to research. So your GPA is not the most important thing. And I don't know, is the resume limited to 2 pages? I don't think it
I don't
is.
remember it being. Oh, is it?
According to the Dear Colleague letter, it is.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
Okay.
Another question, if you wouldn't mind, if folks wouldn't mind addressing, is could you talk a little bit about the definition of computing experience? So what does equivalent computing experience mean?
So I think we see a lot, like there are people who have majored in an engineering field or in physics or chemistry who've really picked up programming skills. Sometimes started, maybe they have taken just a course, but then have been trained at the either at their workplace that really provides courses that they can take. They may have taken courses online. They may have taken them in the evenings or somewhere, and when they describe their skills, what they do really understand. They have many times the knowledge is in one field. They may actually know an awful lot about databases and database queries and building databases, and maybe not so much about theory of complexity theory, but they do have a background that really shows you can learn things, and and what you need for your research, you actually are well prepared for. What we hear the most that students have forgotten are their math skills, the math courses, especially if you go into machine learning, AI, the linear algebra, the statistics. So we hear this repeatedly from fellows where they say, I wish I hadn't forgotten so much linear algebra. That's going to come, that's what you're going to find yourself refreshing and picking up again if you want to go in these areas.
I think I saw somewhere in there, someone was asking about whether the fellowship was stackable. And so um, the CS Grad4US fellowships, they cannot be concurrently accepted or combined with support from another individual federal graduate fellowship, irrespective of the fellow's status. And so federal graduate fellowships are defined as awards for which an applicant applies as an individual, not as part of a program in which an institution applies for an award. So that's one distinction.
But I think that there's a, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I say this because of the way that the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program worked, is that an institution, once you've been admitted to the program, could give you a local fellowship as well on top of the NSF fellowship, and that's not a federal
Correct.
Yeah.
scholarship or fellowship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there are fellowships from companies that Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they all have fellowship programs. There are fellowships that the university has. And there's a wide range of fellowships that you actually qualify. And so you probably, if you're interested in stacking because you aren't going to be an RA for some reason, you probably are going to be active in pursuing this and making sure you apply.
Yeah, that was a good question.
And if I may, there's a question. I'm still an undergrad. Any suggestions on things to do to better prepare myself for graduate school? I'm going to suggest there's another program run by CRA, which is called the Undergraduate Research to PhD program, UR to PhD. And I highly recommend you look into that program and its various resources. Two of the members or three of the members on this call are also involved in that program. So UR to PhD, I'll put that in there as well. There are other programs as well that exist, though.
Mhm.
Doesn't CRAE have a whole bunch of resources for people who are interested in going to graduate school?
Why, yes, Jeff. In fact, CRAE does, as all of us have been on part of CRAE at one point or another. So if you go to the CRA.org webpage, there is a committee, and I will put the link in the chat, for the CRA Education Committee, where we have a number of resources, including UR to PhD, but also some online that we have a Spark website and various other resources for students who are interested in getting involved in research, both people who are, undergraduates, but also people who have finished with their bachelor's degree and are looking to find out more information about research and master's programs versus PhD programs.
All right. Well, I don't see any additional well, there it is. All I had to do was talk, and there's the next question. Let's see here.
So future webinars. So on the CRA website about this program, you actually see PDF files of the slides that we use in the mentoring sessions, the group mentoring sessions. So if you're really interested, they're overall self-explaining, but I think they also give you links. That's a good resource just to look through them. We don't have recordings that are public, but the slides are available, and I think that can be very helpful to see what does an application look like and what number of resources to find programs you're interested in. So I encourage anybody to look at that. If you, I don't think we have future webinars planned.
Okay, and with that, I think we'll go ahead and bring it to a close. We do have a poll for you to take if you would please participate in that. We'll share the slides and the recording, so those will be made available. And if you do have any follow-up questions or additional questions that you think of after the webinar is over, please do send us an email and we will respond to that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.